Our ancestors, the Celts, believed that the period between day and night, the twilight hour, was a dangerous time, Sarah read, when a person's soul might cross over into another dimension, a supernatural world. That morning she had seen the newspaper report on a new book about ghosts in Ireland, and this line stuck in her mind. This afternoon she felt excited, but at the same time rather small and childish. Autumn often seemed to make her feel this way. She had started university in Newcastle nearly a month ago, but still didn't really know the place. She'd visited twice with her parents years ago when she was just a little girl. Apart from the interview for her course in economics, that was her only experience of the city. Newcastle was so big in comparison with Alnwick, so different. Well, your first time away from home, she told herself. It's bound to feel a bit lonely. For a Thursday, it was surprising how many people seemed to be finishing work early. Halfway across the Tyne Bridge and looking back at Newcastle, she could see the traffic getting busier. Lots of men and women in suits were walking along the quayside, heading up towards Grey Street as if they couldn't wait to get started on their Christmas shopping. And it was only October. There was a crispness in the air, with wintry-looking clouds scudding across a sky that was white and blue, the cityscape turning from orange to grey in the late afternoon light. She was pleased Dad had sent her the money for a new coat last weekend. It was so cold that the puddles left by the wet morning seemed ready to freeze. The wind was getting up as well. She turned towards Gateshead and glanced at the huge shape of the sage Gateshead where men were working on its roof, like insects at this distance. She realised she would have been better off walking across the Millennium Bridge. Going this way it would take about half an hour, and she'd be lucky if she made it home before dark. "These days I feel like I don't know the old place," said a man's voice suddenly. Sarah jumped. She hadn't seen him coming. "I'm new here as well," she said, turning to look at him. He was a young man of about her own age, about a head taller than her. He was good-looking, but somehow nothing like the lads at university. Short dark hair, clean-shaven, but with a few small cuts around his chin. He must have been heading for a Halloween fancy dress party, because he was wearing a strange uniform. A red jacket with a white sash and dark trousers made of some rough fabric. It was just like she'd seen in pictures of soldiers in the 19th century. She'd said the first thing that came into her head, but now she found herself tongue-tied. In the past month she'd quickly got used to meeting new people, but this one was different. "Unfathomable," said a voice in her head. They both stood in silence for a few seconds, looking at each other. "I don't mean to be forward, but could I walk with you for a little while? Just for the company, you know." Even his speech was strange, old-fashioned, and with an accent she didn't recognise. South-West England, maybe? "Yes, all right," she said hesitantly. "I'm Sarah, by the way. Thomas Plummer." As they carried on towards Gateshead, what Thomas said didn't make much sense to her. "I was just starting to get to know the place. Stationed here for only a few months beforehand. My family warned me how dirty and crowded it would be. As it happened, the talk was greatly exaggerated. Of course, there was the cholera, but things improved after that." "Cholera? You were stationed somewhere abroad then?" Thomas didn't reply to this. His eyes seemed to look straight through her, over the bridge to the cluster of new buildings on the Gateshead quayside. "I'm sorry I'm a bit jumpy today," she said. "I'm still getting used to the area, and I was reading spooky stuff earlier on." We have something in common then, said Thomas, with a faint hint of a smile, although I'll never get used to it. Not now. It used to be all so different, he went on. Down on the riverside, where that naval station is, there were little tumble-down houses, all crowded together. Poor places, I must admit, and doubtless unsanitary. My lodging-house was the best of them, and tolerable enough. It was a calm night, peaceful until the fire. Sarah felt a wave of dizziness. The landscape seemed to shimmer and blur. She felt as if the sky was getting darker much faster than it should. He's hypnotizing me, she thought. Suddenly she could see the tumble-down houses, down on the quayside. They were clustered around what looked like a warehouse. It was night. People in dirty nightdresses, like a Dickens story, came running out of them, shouting. Then a better-dressed man wearing a long jacket ran out of the warehouse. His hair was on fire, and he was screaming. Now she could see flames flickering behind a couple of the warehouse's ground-floor windows. Further up the riverbank, in the churchyard, she could see someone else moving. A young woman, waving and shouting, "Hello!" She didn't seem to be aware of the fire down below. Then Sarah was almost knocked off her feet by a terrific cracking noise, and then a boom, as if a bomb had gone off right beside her. Flames lit up the whole night scene. Sarah looked down at herself. 2 arms, 2 legs. She was amazed she wasn't hurt. She blinked, and the young woman waving at her got more distinct, as if she'd just put her contact lenses in. It wasn't dark at all, but still twilight, like it had been a few moments ago. There was no fire. The young woman was her friend Claire, waving at her from St. Mary's churchyard a couple of 100 metres away. Claire shared the flat with her, was a history student, and was out doing research for her dissertation today. "Excuse me, that's my flatmate," Sarah mumbled. "Better go and see her." She didn't exactly want to lose Thomas, but he did make her feel uncomfortable. "A friend?" he said, as if he didn't quite understand her. "Very well, but before you go, could I ask a favour of you? Would you do something for me? Look for a ring in St. Mary's churchyard, in the soil just by the main gate, lost a long time back. Try to the left of the gate as you enter. It's just a poor copper thing, not valuable. If you find it, take it into the church and set it on the altar." They were reaching the Gateshead end of the bridge now. Thomas was walking just behind her. The wind seemed to change direction, and his footsteps suddenly stopped. When she looked round, he was gone. Claire met her at the end of the bridge, looking slightly bedraggled. "You all right?" she asked Sarah. "Hi, Claire. Fine, thanks. Funny day I've had, though. I just met this lad in fancy dress. Well, you saw him. He was walking across the bridge with me when I saw you." "I didn't see anybody with you," said Claire, "but you were swaying around as if you'd had a few too many Smirnoff Ices. I was a bit worried about you." "But he was with me until just a minute ago. You must have seen him." They were both feeling cold now, and the darkness was approaching fast. They did the lonely walk back to the flat as quickly as possible, glad that they'd met each other. Sarah put the kettle on, and as they sat down with their cups of tea, told Claire the story of her strange meeting. Claire was silent right through the story, and by the end looked strangely pale. "If I believed in ghosts," she said slowly, "I would say you'd just seen one." I told you I'll be doing Victorian Gateshead for my dissertation, didn't I? Well, I've been researching the huge fire they had in 1854. I haven't got very far. Need to try to talk to the descendants of some of the people involved. What I do know is that Thomas Plummer was the name of one of the young ensigns killed trying to fight the fire. I don't know what to make of it, said Sarah. What was all that about finding a ring? Claire thought for a while. Well, it's 150 years ago. Ensign Plummer was right next to the warehouse that exploded. I don't think they found any trace of his body. If the ring was his, it would be the only thing left of him. I suppose it'll give his spirit peace to have it found and moved to the church. But it isn't even a proper church anymore. I'm not sure it would matter to him that they don't have services there anymore. It's the symbolism that would count. Sarah decided to go to the church in the morning when there was plenty of light. Claire had wanted to go with her, but had an interview with her personal tutor that couldn't be put off. It was a cold but crisp day. Despite the calm, sunny weather, she felt somehow as if she was going to a funeral. Just to the left of the gate as you enter, Thomas had said. As she bent down to examine the ground, she felt a sudden wave of heat, as if someone had lit a fire nearby. She felt a bit foolish scrabbling around in the damp ground with her fingers, but after just a few seconds she uncovered an old tarnished copper ring. Could it really have lain there for 150 years? As she headed into the church with it, a worn stone caught her eye. It wasn't a gravestone in the ground, but set into the church wall. In memory of Thomas Plummer, killed in Hillgate while bravely fighting the Great Fire of 6th of October 1854. Such was the explosion that no mortal remains were found. Let this stone serve to remind all of his valour. There was no altar in the church anymore, but she put the ring down where she thought the altar would have been. It rolled across the stone floor and fell through a chink, disappearing from sight. It might have been her imagination, but she was sure she caught a glimpse of Thomas's face reflected in one of the stained glass windows. She'd never seen him smile before. Legends tell us that Gateshead is full of ghosts, and quite a few seem to be people who died in the fire. So if you ever see anything strange, particularly during that twilight hour, just as it's getting dark, don't worry. Most of them are harmless.